Hey, I'm Di McQueen, licensed clinical social worker, family and addiction expert. I'm here with Dr. Brian Jackson, my longtime cohort who specializes in the field of addiction. Welcome to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction.
Di and I have worked with addicts, alcoholics, and their families for over 30 years combined. Our podcast and coaching programs focus on families who have a loved one suffering from addiction. Our experience has been that this disease affects families as much, if not more, than the addict or alcoholic.
Is your world spinning out of control? Are you codependent? Are you experiencing worry, loss of sleep, and difficulty concentrating? If so, you're in the right place. Brian and I have both personally lived it, learned it, and now we're going to teach you tools and techniques on how to get your life back that you thought was shattered by addiction.
Okay, let's dive in.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Brian Jackson. I'm here with my partner, Diane McQueen. Welcome to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. And we wanted to talk to you today about a topic that we don't talk about very much, and it's the different types of addiction that go unnoticed. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about, alcohol and substance use addiction, but there are other addictions that are a little bit more subtle, maybe not subtle, but and this could apply to anyone, whether you're a family member or you're the person that's in active addiction with substances. So one of them is behavioral addiction. And we really don't talk about this very much, but, people associate addiction solely with substances like alcohol or drugs. But you can be addicted to specific behaviors. Common addictive behaviors include shopping, where you're spending too much money, sex, where you're acting out to get some temporary relief from your situation, gambling, and video gaming. For those of us that have kids, we see them on the videos games all the time. So this compulsive behavior, gives the user a rush or high similar to those that are addicted to a substance experience. So there's something that you're getting out of it that's giving you a goodie. And typically what that is some kind of dopamine goodie. However, this is not really a good way to get that goodie, that feel better feeling. So, and a lot of this stuff is impulsive. Di, you want to talk about that?
Sure. Hey, B, good to see you. It's, I know it's been a little bit, and you're looking well, my dear.
Thank you.
Anyway,
You
let's talk a little bit about impulse addictions, which are, impulse control can lead to, in time, impulsive addictions. So someone with impulse control disorders, struggles to manage their emotions or their actions. So this disorder can make someone sort of prone to theft, emotional outbursts, and destructive behaviors. So for instance, things like shoplifting or someone having a raging moment where they just can't control the emotion, they just let it all out. Believe it or not, that actually can become addictive. And, this is also very destructive for them, but also the people around them. So some of these impulse controls, and actually the DSM actually believes that about 10.5% of the population actually have an impulse control disorder. And it gets in the way, right? I mean, these folks that have these outbursts and stuff, can actually, it's very difficult for people that have to, live with people who have, we would consider that a mental health disorder in its purest sense, but it can also become destructive in that you never know what this person is going to do. Risky behaviors. It's very impulsive. You ever been in a car with somebody and all of a sudden they went from the speed limit to 100 miles an hour and, you're scared to death. So that is another behavior that seems to be one that we really, most people don't think of as an addiction, but actually can, high risky behaviors. So, the next one that I think we were going to talk about is, and again, we're just putting like the cap on this. we're just barely cracking the surface. We could get into each and every one of these, but we just thought we'd give you guys an opportunity to see some other, some other things that might be addictive behaviors that most people don't think about. So, and to bounce the ball back to you on the tobacco addiction, B, unless, of course, you have some things to say about impulse.
No, no, I think you covered everything there. But yeah, one that we should cover that we don't really talk too much about is tobacco addiction because it's a very, very powerful addiction. It's an addictive substance, whether it's cigarettes or chewing tobacco, all these substances or those two substances contain nicotine. And a lot of tobacco users begin at a young age. Some of them pick up the habit before they turn 18, and it's a very difficult addiction to break because the nicotine receptors really get pleasure out of the increase in dopamine that you receive. So it facilitates a pleasurable sensation while smoking, but the health consequences of smoking are severe. And I think we're finally in the day and age where we understand that smoking causes lung cancer, heart disease, hypertension, all of those things. But a lot of times we don't think that through when we are smoking. But it is, a leading cause of preventable deaths. So if you've been to the doctor and they ask you if you've been smoking and you are smoking, my guess is that 100% of the time, the doctor will suggest to you that you do stop smoking because, millions of people die every year due to tobacco use. Um, the dangers are common knowledge. We just talked about that. But people often struggle with the withdrawal symptoms, both physical and mental, when they try to quit. And then also it's, the movement of the hand and having a cigarette, after a meal, having a cigarette, when you wake up in the morning. So there's a whole ritual that's associated with that. So do not smoke.
Do not smoke. I will be honest, that was probably one of the hardest things I ever got rid of in my life. You'd quit, you'd start, you quit, you start, and I think you nailed it. We start young a lot of times. Watching, I certainly was watching my parents, but that was a tough one. It was a really tough one. And I think you also nailed it, B, with the habitual part of that, like the ritual of driving the same way. And I remember when I started to, quit, that I like took a different route to work so that I would try something different and see if I could break the habits of that, I was like that Kookabalooka one where I'd go out and I would work a really hard workout. And the second I got out of the gym, I'd light up a cigarette. Kind of, obviously not making a lot of sense when you think about, like, here I do this wonderful thing for my body and then ruin it all within a nanosecond of walking out of the gym. It was, and I would see myself and go like that is total insanity. Right. And now we've kind of switched with now this vaping thing, which is also, vapes are, similarly as addictive. Would you agree? And I think as harmful, maybe worse.
A lot of people say that stopping smoking and the withdrawal symptoms from nicotine are as strong as withdrawals from opioids or heroin or anything like that. So it's not an easy one to stop.
It is not. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do this. But I did. And, way healthier because of it. And doctors are always happy when you say, nope, I haven't had a cigarette in many, many years now. So much like yourself, it's great. So moving on, shall we talk about sex addiction a little bit?
Sure.
Everybody's favorite addiction, right? We know, and here's one of those that's very difficult because sex is a natural part of a healthy life, right? So, it becomes a very dicey subject matter when people, become addicted. It becomes more of a behavioral addiction. Oftentimes, it's characterized by compulsive sexual behaviors or trying to fill a hole that was caused by abandonment or what have you. So, there's always that sex and love addiction, but it is very difficult because, there's this excessive means of consumption, whether it's pornography or masturbation or actual sex itself. But oftentimes it's not the actual act as much as it is the thought of what you're going to do and getting there. So, um, it is oftentimes, it becomes very difficult because it hurts people that we love, right? If you're in a monogamous relationship and you're having an extramarital affair or whatever, it becomes something that is very difficult for the other person. And we've got all kinds of things to amends to and work out. Not to mention that there is also a potential health risk. If I'm taking on risky behaviors, and I'm not using protected sex or whatever, or with people that are maybe not really taking care of themselves, there is an ability to get a very serious, health hazard for yourself. So again, usually these are because of something inside of you is missing or feels like there is a hole. And so again, we try to fill it with something. And working those things out, there are opportunities to work with people on sexual addictions and unusual sexual desires, etc., that we can work through, but may need some help to do that.
Yeah, and to your point, like a lot of these addictions that we're talking about, and then you just talked about acting out on your partner or your spouse, you end up keeping it a secret, and one of the sayings we talk about a lot is that we're as sick as our secrets. So if you have a secret, whether it's any one of the addictions that we just talked about, it's almost impossible to have 100% honest communication intimacy because you're trying to hide something. So, our saying, Di and I are, is if you have to keep it a secret, don't do it. Um, so yeah, so it can cause a lot of, I don't know, harm, I guess, to, your loved ones.
Exactly. It's a painful experience to find out someone that you care about deeply or think, you have a special bond with is doing something what is considered somewhat deceitful or not being honest and true, right? So, yeah, I mean that one can go deep and wide. And, again, it's one of those things that it's a little bit more difficult because it is such a natural part of our, of our being. So I'm going to flip you over to another one over here, B, if you don't mind, so we can, just talk it through a little bit, which is, the internet addiction, which is sort of a thing these days. I mean, it's a big, big deal, and makes it very difficult, right? Because everybody is on their phones or on some sort of device most of the time, right?
Yeah, so the internet, it's just in our face. We depend on it for so many things. We use it for school, work, relaxation, playing games maybe on your phone, but hopefully for not, extended periods of time. So, with smartphones, tablets, computers, the internet is just, a tap or a click away, and you see, and ask yourself how addicted you are to your phone. I mean, I always have mine near me. So, in a lot of ways, it's made life easier. So, we can find the answer to nearly any question almost immediately. And we can connect with friends and family across the world, through social media. But on the other hand, we can overdo it with this. Um, the one of the other things that we see a lot of is, people like spending incredible amounts of time, on the internet. So, it's what we call screen time. How much screen time are you spending? I think even our phones can give us a recap of how much screen time we've spent. So we can find ourselves like going down these rabbit holes and mindlessly scrolling through our social media feeds for hours. But it's not really recognized by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, but research indicates that internet addiction is a prevalent issue. And then also addiction to video gaming and the online gambling can fall under the umbrella of internet addiction. I mean, now you don't have to go to a casino. You can just go online, and put some money in and start gambling. And people get addicted, to that. So, video gaming, I hear this a lot from parents where they have, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old children that they're just so addicted to this video gaming. They don't want to do their homework. They want to get on the video gaming. I mean, when you and I were kids, we used to go outside and play in the dirt, and now in this day and age, we didn't have, access to all this internet stuff and video gaming, which is, part of this generation.
Yeah, and it is becoming a real problem statement. I believe the average time on devices now, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere around 13 hours a day per person. That's a huge amount of time. Huge amount of time. So, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, you go like, holy crow, that's more than half of a day. And you're supposed to be sleeping about 8 hours of that. So that doesn't leave a lot of time to be doing something different, like moving, for instance, getting some physical exercise, which is another huge problem, right? So, but let's jump back for just a second, because I'm going to let you talk about one, and then I'll jump back in here with the retail therapy. But since we were talking about gambling, that's one of your areas of specialty, my dear. So I thought, why don't you jump in and talk about the gambling addiction real quick, and then I'll jump into retail therapy.
Yeah, I had become certified as a gambling addiction counselor years ago, and then I ended up giving it up because it was so discouraging. I had a couple come in that were married for 25 years, and the husband revealed to the wife that he had gambled away all the 401k accounts. They're getting ready to lose their house. And, she had no idea. She was totally shocked. So, if we're using drugs or alcohol, it's pretty obvious that, we're impaired. But with the gambling, a lot of people find a way, to hide it. And that really can have some real negative financial consequences. So compulsive gambling, like other addictions, is driven by the feeling of reward when you place your bets. You may experience losses, and it's interesting. Gambling people will recover from a gambling loss the night before a lot quicker than a person will recover from a hangover. So it's a compulsion that drives you to continue. So as I was saying, a lot of addicts can exhaust their savings, destroy relationships, and even enter into some stealing or something just to finance their behavior. And the tolerance can be increased over time. So the frequency and intensity and the time you're spending, can get progressive, more and more and more time gambling. So you may find yourself needing to make larger bets. So again, the progression to more and more, in order to feel the same feeling. And a lot of people just focus on one game, poker, while others find multiple outlets appealing, like casino table games, slots, and other betting forums. But definitely one that I think in a lot of ways is delusional because they haven't built those big casinos and all those restaurants where they feed you for free and free drinks if everybody was winning. So
Exactly. It's a great point. So similarly, right, is the retail therapy, which is also a compulsion. So it's also stimulated by that reward system and the dopamine high. So, again, it's, if I go out and buy something new, it makes me feel like I've got something in there. But the challenge is, for what seems to be a harmless outlet becomes very, dire pretty quickly if you you get into this compulsion, and it's usually a financial problem, right? Much like gambling, where, there's a large dependence on financial stuff, but it also can become like a hoarding issue where you just start buying things that you actually don't need. And, what are you doing with this? It's just really to feed a habit. And, sometimes um, it puts us into not only a financial ruin, debting, but also a space issue and, being able to keep clean. It can go, it has many tentacles, which usually then, if I'm married or with someone, long term, it becomes a very serious issue because the compulsion becomes so dire that we need to, get our fix. We need to get our fix. So most people kind of joke about, I'm going to go do a little retail therapy. And again, within reason, that's fine. If I'm just, having a day or I need to go find some things and I go out for the day. But most people don't go and return everything that they just bought. Most people aren't able to control that desire. And, when we have these compulsive behaviors, they can start to unravel pretty quickly. And most, addictions, as we discuss over and over again, become, progressive. So, the shopping amount has to be bigger, the item has to be better, the latest and greatest of whatever this is, even though I already have 12 of whatever that was. So we get into some, we can go off on some pretty good tangents with that one as well. But certainly we can create, some discord in the family and financially.
And you see this a lot, though, too, or at least I do. Like when there is an active, addict, in the family, and you feel so out of control that a lot of times people will fall into this shopping addiction. It's almost like there's an Amazon box coming to the house every day, and you open it up and you get this temporary goodie or escape from the reality of the situation, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. And then ultimately, as you said, now we've got a financial problem on top of the addiction problem that's running through the family. So a lot of this stuff, these addictions that we're talking about, a lot of family members will fall into to try and fill that hole in the soul that you talked about. Um, so just to feel better for just a little while, but it has consequences.
Right. And I think we just like touched on this again, B, which is the effects that it has on family members. And people go like, "Oh, it's just shopping. What's the big deal?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a huge deal if you can't pay your mortgage because someone went out and spent, more than what we had to be able, to pay things like our food, our water bill, our mortgage payments and that type of thing." And family members feel helpless, not knowing what to do. Like they cut up a credit card, the person goes out and gets another credit card. And so, there are ways that we have to kind of, sit down with people and help them understand, boundary setting, what is important, what is appropriate for all of these. But, in particular, I know that shopping comes into play quite often in our world where people are talking about like, "Oh my God, they keep buying and they keep buying and they keep buying. What do I do?" And, there are things you can do. It's not easy, but there are limitations of things we can do.
Yeah, so another important one to talk about is food addiction, and we probably should have hit on this, earlier when we were talking about different addictions, because this can become a real serious and psychological effects. The food addiction can come with all that. Um, so somebody that's struggling with food addiction may also be contending with obesity, chronic pain, anxiety symptoms, and depression. Um, so this addiction may feel like a way of coping, as I was just talking about earlier, with difficult emotions such as stress. Um, so food, particularly food with high in fat, sugar, and salt, can trigger the brain's reward system. So we know that sugar gives a really big dopamine release. Some people have said that sugar is as addictive as cocaine. So you get the goodie from eating the sugar, then your sugar goes down, and then you have a craving for more sugar, and it just repeats itself over and over. So you might find yourself compulsively eating even when if you're not hungry. So, if you're at the refrigerator at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're not eating because you're hungry. You're eating because you're empty or you have some sort of stress. And this is kind of a stress reliever, if you will. And all of these, as Di has said, and I've said, we don't do it. We know why we do it because it makes us feel better. However, it only makes us feel better for a little bit of time, and then it can just get progressive and worse and worse and worse until it becomes a real problem. So, so food addiction can involve eating, many different things. Some foods are considered triggers for this dependency. Ice cream, candy, pasta, all my favorites, and chips are
Of
often
course.
associated with compulsive eating. So,
Well,
yeah,
and
as
here's a
opposed,
couple
go ahead.
fun facts, right? Which is, food is another one of those things we have to have to survive.
Right,
So it
right.
makes it really difficult, right? But we also know that these, food industry, they know this, right? They have chemists that are actually finding ways, to go ahead and produce foods. And it's always these processed foods that cause that click. And all of a sudden we need more and more and more. They're very aware of it and they know exactly what we need to do to. And as you see, more and more of our shelves in our grocery stores are, more and more and more processed foods. So, and you're right, it becomes all of our favorites. It becomes all of our favorites. And it's really difficult because you must eat to survive. So, in my heart, I've always found that to be one of the most difficult addictions is to be a food addict because you have to eat to survive. And how do you do
Yeah,
that and stay
exactly.
clean and sober, right?
Exactly. It's a tough one. It really is. And I really feel for people that struggle with it.
Me too. Me too. So, quick question, right? I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking about is how do I kind of identify, do I have an addiction of some kind? So, a lot of times it's really hard to recognize it, but we'll give you a few key takeaways, right? Which is, and some common signs of addictive behaviors are, priority shifting, which is, there's other aspects of your life, work, so, school, socialization become less important than what you're thinking about you need. Like, I need to go out and buy a pizza right now, and then I'll go over to this party. Before I go there, I'm going to eat the pizza. Or, I've just got to go out and place these couple bets really quick before I go to work today, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Um, and the next one is a lack of control. Do you find yourself returning to the same behavior even though you've said time and time again, this is a problem? And that becomes something that is a real, question mark for anybody. And we kind of tell people that all the time, right? Be where we go, why don't you go test this out and see? Um, and the next one I know is one of Brian's favorites, which is increased tolerance. Talk about that, B.
Well, yeah, it's like, do you need to take more of the drug or drink more to get the same feeling you are chasing? Do you need to shop, bet, eat, or play more? So, kind of the rule of thumb is, am I dabbling in this, or now have I gotten hooked and now I'm doing it more frequently? I'm hiding it, just like we would with, a substance use disorder. So, um, yeah, it's progressive. It's an illness that's progressive. Um, and then, we go on to, more risk taking behavior. Are you less concerned with the risks and consequences than, with achieving that pleasurable feeling? So we talk about gambling on the phone. You might be sitting on one end of the couch on your phone and your wife is on the other end of the couch. And now you're really taking risk and you're placing bets, within 10 or 12 feet of your wife, whereas before it was something that you were trying to hide. So another indication that the addiction has got you. Um, a lot of times addicts, we risk our health, safety, relationships, and financial security in order to maintain their addiction. So it becomes more important to us as a progressive progresses, then other things in our lives that used to be a priority, it takes over.
It sure
So,
does. And lastly, of course, is if you start to go into withdrawals, right? Where you have an unpleasant physical or psychological, feeling based on not being able to indulge in your substance or activity of choice. And people go like, you can't withdraw from shopping. Oh, yes, you can,
oh
right?
yeah,
Or you get depressed, it really becomes, you know, woe is me, the there's just nothing exciting or fun to do. And so it really becomes something, a lot of people feel the same types of feelings that you do from a physical standpoint, especially with foods, with different substances, gambling. I mean, all of these things can actually have a physiological effect on people, not to mention the psychological effect it has. So those are things that we really want you to know, to identify, um, you know, if there's something going on. And then the question bodes to, when do addicts or addictions need to be treated? So that, I think it's really important to understand. And, Brian and I kind of have this philosophy that if your addiction or whatever you're doing is having negative effects on your quality of life, your family members, your work situations, your financial, social, emotional health, um, physically, of course, and any combination of the above, it's probably a problem that needs to be treated in some fashion. So, that's always a good indicator, because again, everybody goes, well, how do I know if I'm an addict? I'm only doing this. And that's how we kind of gauge it, which is, when it starts to have negative effects on any or all of the above things just mentioned, it's probably time to get some guidance on what to do, ways to treat this, and what we need to do to become what we call clean and sober. B?
yeah. And you can only do it for so long before you eventually, will have consequences. And the other interesting thing that I saw too with gambling addiction is that people, who had severe financial consequences, that were betting, I don't know, I'm just pick a number. They were betting $1,000 a week, so they go to, oh, okay, well now I'll just bet, $100 a week. Well, that never lasts. You always go back up to the level you were at or more. Same with shopping. I'm spending $500 a week. Okay, I got to cool it. I'll go back to $50 a week, and the next thing you know, you're back up there. That's a clear indication that this is an addiction that's progressive. So just be aware, just be on the lookout for it. And again, a lot of these they're subtle, but not so subtle. But I think it's important to point it out so that you can pay attention to what you're doing, what a family member's doing, and see how far it's going.
Exactly. And then, instead of getting way into all the treatments that there are, because we'd be here for hours and hours, I think this is a good opportunity to just say, hey, if you're feeling any of these things, if you've seen your family members getting more agitated or exasperated because they don't know what to do, maybe it is time to get some treatment. And you would do something like call someone, reach out to someone like Brian and I, or another counselor, or 12-step programs, or a friend, and have a discussion. At least start by doing something, um and get educated on what can be done, and get some help to clear up this issue. I think there's lots and lots of things that people don't realize that they can do. A lot of people are so embarrassed and ashamed of what has they've become, but we don't ever want someone to feel that way. We would much rather have somebody reach out and get the help that they need. Right, B?
Yes, absolutely. And you can reach out to us for a free consult, and if we can help you, we'll let you know. If we can't, we'll try and direct you in a different direction. And again, if you have any questions for us, you can send us a question at info@familyandaddictionexperts.com, and we will get back to you with an answer. And if we don't know, we'll find out the answer and get back to you.
We'll do
So,
our very best, that is for sure. We also have some free resources on our website. You can go to the Family Survival Kit and look up some information, and we'd be delighted to help you, see you, talk to you. You know, whatever we're trying to stress to you today is that no matter what it is, no matter where, you know, how far down the pike you've gone, we believe there's hope for everybody. And we would love it for, you know, for you to get that help you need, whether you're the family member or the addict themselves.
Thanks so much for joining our podcast, Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with more important tools, techniques, and ways for you to focus on you instead of the alcoholic or addict in your world.
Until then, please go to our website, familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's familyandaddictionexperts.com. You'll also see links to our Facebook and Instagram pages. Please also, if you have any emails that you would like to send us, that's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. With any thoughts, feelings, questions that you may have for us, we would love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.